The first question: professional athletes, should they be allowed to take performance enhancing drugs?
No, my gut feeling is no, they shouldn't be allowed to take performance enhancing drugs. There's already an advantage to wealthier countries. I'm talking about the Olympics and world sports that have better resources to training facilities and higher funding for athletes so they can put more into their training. If you add drugs to that mix, it's just a completely unfair advantage to, what we're trying to get is a level playing field so we can see, which athlete is actually the best. And the way to do that is to try and minimize the outside factors, the outside influences. And I think the best way to do that is to keep it just to the pure physical and mental training that these athletes can do. And sport is such it just can bring people together to root for and to cheer, and it can be so joyful. And I'm a Buffalo Bills fan, and this past couple of years have been heartbreaking, but also wonderful to
Okay,
watch
I
that.
disagree with you. I think look at the case of Lance Armstrong and the Tour de France winner 7 times over. The only reason anybody talks about Lance Armstrong is because he won the Tour de France, which is a grueling cycling race, and he won it 7 times in a row. And after the fact, it came out that he did it with the help of performance enhancing drugs. But the case he made on Oprah was that in his sport at that time, there was not a single person who was not on performance enhancing drugs in that race. Now, all of those guys are amazing, but there's no way he would have won that race if he didn't have performance enhancing drugs. And so we wouldn't be talking about him at all if it were not for that.
But
I
why
know
why
that
should he?
it's not my turn. It's my turn. And so, you know, I think it's not about being pure and natural. It's about how well you can adjust yourself in order to get the most performance out as possible. Now it's an open round.
So who was the best athlete on that in the Tour de France in those 7 years that he won? Was it him? We don't know, right? He just had a better drug
But
regimen.
your
I
argument
read his
presumes
book. I
your
read his book.
argument. You got to let me talk. Also,
Oh,
your argument presumes that you have to be unblemished in order to be a pure athlete. Why can't athletes evolve to supplement themselves and make themselves as fast and strong as possible? Like, we're evolving all the time. Elon Musk wants us to put microchips in our head to evolve.
well, we can, but it has to be out. It has to be in the open. So we have to have then a Tour de France that is where drug enhancement is allowed, right? And then those athletes can judge themselves based on that, and then you can have pure athletes that are based just on that.
Oh, thank you for coming over to my position.
I'd still disagree. I think it should be pure, but if you think that that's where we're going, and if that's necessary, I still don't think we know who the best athlete in the Tour de France
I'm
is.
just making the case against your case.
The
And
other thing is,
so,
though, he was born. I read his book. He was born with uh, like a lung capacity that is like 25% higher than the average person, or something like that. Like he was just
uh,
born with his natural. So already
it's like
he,
Michael Phelps had an advantage because he was like shaped like a
he's got
fish.
this crazy wingspan, right? So
Yeah.
there are those people, and that's just an unfair advantage. But it's natural. There's nothing they could do about it.
Well, the point I was
So
trying to make, maybe not as articulate as I would like, but was, you know, aren't we trying to see what a human can do, and not necessarily, why does it have to be a naturally unsupplemented human? Why can't we see how a human can be tweaked, and in a way that you get the best possible performance out of them, and it evens out the playing field. If everyone's allowed to do that, then we're going to see the fastest and strongest human beings. And isn't that what elite athletics is all about?
well, I just don't think that's athletics. I think that's science. I think that's
But
human
if we're going to take
experimentation, and
science out of athleticism, are we going to also take mental health science out of athleticism? Because these guys hire sports psychologists to deal with their demons and to turn their fear into fuel. Are we going to remove that too because it's unnatural?
But if we took a drug that hyper focused athletes and removed the, like they used to have heart monitors on some of the golfers on one of the golf tours, just to see, like, the person's got a 6 foot putt for birdie, and their heart would elevate, right? Their heart rate would elevate. Um, if we take a drug to remove that, then that person's more likely to make that putt. So it's part of it. That's part of the sport. That's part of the tension. So yes, I think there's a place for what you're saying, but I don't think it's in a natural athletic competition.
Okay. All right. Round two. Now, just to remind you, the first minute is uninterrupted, and the second minute is uninterrupted, and the last minute is where we get to spar. But even it's not about filibustering. The last minute is not just about talking over each other. It's
Okay,
just
I
this
got it.
nice, assertive back and forth.
I'm just falling into our old ways. That's all.
I know. I'm sure the viewers will enjoy it. All right. The next question. Yeah, I talk about this a lot in my debate classes, so I'm ready to go either side, but whatever you want. There are apparently about 100 what we call uncontacted tribes out there in the world, and some of them more remote than others, but most of them are in the Amazon rainforest. And the truth is, we have had limited contact with them because of the fires going on, and they've kind of run into the lumberers or in the forest, and but they choose to not engage. They choose to not to have a kind of ongoing relationship with the outside world, with the larger society. Should we respect that, or should we kind of bring them into our fold? Should we try to kind of you know improve on our communication, and should we make contact with the world's remaining, let's say, 100 uncontacted tribes?
Okay. I'm going to say we should not make contact with them. They have chosen to remain that way. They have chosen to live a life that is in line with nature, that doesn't harm the environment that they are in. They can live peacefully and in harmony with their environment. And I don't think they want any part of what we have to offer. Can we benefit from them? Yes, because maybe they have practices or medicinal knowledge that we could use. But it's up to us to find that. And if they don't want to be found, they shouldn't be found. They shouldn't be contacted. Let them live their lives. I think it's a treasure to have cultures like that have excluded themselves specifically from the outside world. And I think it's amazing that they can still survive in this current system that we
I
have,
think
this global
on the
system.
point that it is a treasure to have groups of people like this in our world, we can agree on that. It is true. But I think by contacting such tribes, and it doesn't have to be in an egregious, violating way, but by respectfully making contact with these tribes, we can actually preserve their tribes and help them figure out ways of sustaining their tribe and reaching into the future, because by their own trajectory, they're dwindling. They've been getting less and less, and we're down to, like, small groups. I think the Sentinelese in the Indian Ocean are down to 50 to 100 people after 62,000 years of existence. They've been around longer, like 12 times longer than the Chinese culture, down to 50 people. And so I think contacting them in a respectful way is actually going to kind of enhance what you're talking about, preserving this wonderful culture that we treasure. And maybe we can do it in a way that it's not horrible for them.
Maybe is the key word. And I think that's where my fear is that it's not going to go that way. And yes, there are cultures that are dying. I don't know what we can do about that. If they choose,
said
we
that they
have to
don't.
respect their decision, essentially.
But you don't know, like you said, they don't know what we have to offer. They don't know what we have to offer. You said that they don't want what we have to offer. But how do you know what you don't want? You don't know what you don't know. It could be that if we made a gentle and respectful contact, that there's lots of things that we could offer each other, and that we could mutually benefit from. But we will never know unless this contact is made.
But what I keep hearing is if and maybe and possibly, potentially, and the other side of, and those are all, you're presenting them as positives, and I'm presenting those as that there's potential, huge negatives to those too. The Western influence has, so often been negative, whether it's the Western diet or, colonization or whatever.
Uh,
We have not treated other cultures fairly.
it's true, and I wouldn't like put the responsibility on like the American government like to make contact with. We're not. I don't think we should be putting McDonald's on the Sentinelese Island, but maybe if we
But
had some
it would happen.
really kind-hearted like anthropologists or people who specialize in that area and let
Yeah,
them
I agree.
this
I
kind of thing.
On the whole,
But
yes, I do agree that,
the thing
I think there's definite benefits to it.
I
But
also think about the language and the cultures that are slowly dying out, and it would be a shame to allow those things to die out. And even if it was a purely non-selfish to contact those tribes in an attempt to preserve their language, to get it
yeah,
recorded, to preserve their culture, and so that it can be understood and passed on. You know, what happens 50 years from now when they're completely gone and then they kind of dissolve into the ether? Is that what we should
yeah.
be doing?
No, I 100% agree with you in overall. Yes, I think we should for those exact reasons. I think we are losing culture. I think we're losing language, and I think that as a society, as a globe, we could definitely benefit from that. I had to choose a
Okay.
side.
I hear you. And the truth is, James, all of these questions, it's like yes and no, right? There's somewhere in the
Yeah,
middle. But
yeah,
if
always.
you're debating, you got to take a side and let the audience figure out what they think. Okay, let's see here. Next up, binge watching TV. I think we are both experts in this field. Are you?
Yeah,
Not me too. I'm a late night
I don't want to
guilty
admit
as
it, but yeah,
charged.
sure.
I'm a late night binge watcher, and boy oh boy, I'm off and on. Like I can go for whole periods of time, months, without watching a single show. But then as
Yeah.
soon as I watch that first one, I'll watch a second and I'll watch the entire series all at once. I did that with the Japanese version of Squid Game. It's called Alice in Borderland. I watched that
Oh, Alice in
vorac-
Borderland. Yeah, yeah,
voraciously from beginning to
yeah,
end without pause. It was
yeah.
unbelievable.
It's a good way to do it, though.
Anyway, let's talk about the
I
merits
enjoyed that
or the
show.
fallings. What do you think about this?
No, it's not good. It's not good. I think to do it in small doses can be fine, but overall, I think we need to put our attention elsewhere. Uh, watch a TV slowly, absorb it, uh, take it in, think about it, then forget about it, and then get re-engaged the next week or so. I'm not saying don't watch TV, but to binge watch for I think is detrimental. Again, it shortens our attention span. It's lazy, and active reading is an active process. I think it's a much more engaging, much more educational, creative process, and I think we need to do more of that, less of the binge watching. Can still watch TV, but maybe less of the binging.
All right, and so I'll start a little bit early, but I think binge watching, like television itself, as you know, has completely improved since the time that we were teenagers. Right? Television was never as highly produced as it is now. And these days they're making TV shows that are more like movies, and they're very artful, and they're very highly produced with tons of money put into them and storyboards and great writers. And so I think television has become the new reading. It's kind of ties together with like, should we be alarmed that kids aren't reading as much as they used to? And on the face, it seems very alarming. And oh my God, what's going to happen if kids are not reading the way we used to? But they're taking in stories in a different way, and that's from watching movies on TV and TV shows and series. And I think binge watching, it's kind of like what we used to just sink into a chair and into the world of a book, and we would be in there for hours, and your parents would have to pull you out of that world. That's what it's like now to binge watch TV. So yes, they're not reading anymore, but they're watching these shows for long periods of time and taking in the stories and gaining a worldview that way.
Yeah, I think that's a credit to the writers and the producers and the creators. But is it good for us? No, no, I don't think so. I think we're being manipulated to watch more and more and more, and that's exactly what they want. they want consumers. They want us consuming their product. They
Yeah,
want
but
eyeballs on
you
their
said
TV.
yourself before that we're living in like a very stressful world, or that there's no escape from propaganda and media and internet. So we need to have some kind of
I
safe
don't think I
space.
said that.
Well, I think previously you said this is a stressful world we're living in, and we
Sure it
need to
is.
have some kind of space where we can kind of decompress. And binge watching seems to be perfect. People do this late at night, for me, I don't do it all day long every day, but there is a space for it in my life.
Yes. And that's where I think we are definitely in agreement. Do I do it? Yes, I do it myself. I'm guilty, but
Stop agreeing with me. It's
I
a
know,
Spar
but
thing.
because there's a place for it, but I think do it sporadically. Overall, it's a negative. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. Are you binge watching anything these days?
Uh, Last of Us. We just got Crave TV, so
Oh yeah, I keep hearing
actually we're
about
not
that.
binging it. We've been doing okay. We've been watching like an episode every 2 or 3 days.
The one I binge watched recently from beginning was season 5 of Drive to Survive, the Formula One. Have you
Oh
seen
yeah?
this?
No, no.
Have you seen any of them on
We don't watch the
Netflix?
same shows, I guess.
Okay.
And we
Well,
do.
I was
Borderlands.
never a car racing. Like when I was a kid growing up, I thought car racing was like, why are people so interested in these cars going around in circles? What's their problem? But
But
man,
F1's different though, right?
I think F1, the way they did the Netflix Drive to Survive series, is they have cameras everywhere. Like there is not a single reaction, thing that happens, thing that's said that is not captured on cameras. And they have, I think it's the most expensive, highly produced documentary ever in this really crazy, rich world of Formula One racing. And I'm telling you, when you watch the first episode of season 1, you will be hooked. That is definitely a binge-worthy series. Okay, big plug for Drive to Survive.